right now on Justice.
He's fired! Wouldn't you love to see one of these NFL owners, when somebody disrespects our flag, to say, get that son of a bitch off the field right now, out, he's fired.
President Trump putting on a full-court press against athletes who disrespect the flag and the White House.
He's fired!
The NFL in a frenzy. Michelle Malkin is here with reaction.
Rocket Man should have been handled a long time ago.
Trump putting America first and the North Korean dictator on notice.
We're going to do it because we really have no choice. Little Rocket Man.
Governor Mike Huckabee is here to weigh in. And who's the real Rocket Man? I hit the streets to get reaction to Trump's new nickname for the North Korean madman.
What should we do with Rocket Man? I think we should just blow his ass up with his rocket.
A jam-packed Justice starts now. Breaking tonight, politics and sports collide as President Trump is in a war of words with some of the biggest players in the NFL and NBA over their lack of respect for the flag and the White House. Hello and welcome to Justice. I'm Jeanine Pirro. Thanks for being with us. A packed show tonight with the latest developments in North Korea and Iran and President Trump's response to it all. But first, my opening statement. The biggest issue facing our country today is the tiptoeing and political correctness that has brought us to the brink of disaster in national security, politics, and sports. The question? Do we have the fortitude, courage, and determination to stand up to those who threaten our values? Last night in Alabama, President Donald Trump did just that and took no prisoners on the sports issue and the NFL players who disrespect our flag. Last year, San Francisco 49ers quarterback Colin Kaepernick, who, by the way, is without a team this year, began the protest by taking a knee during our Star-Spangled Banner.
Wouldn't you love to see one of these NFL owners, when somebody disrespects our flag, to say, get that son of a bitch off the field right now, out, he's fired. He's fired! Total disrespect of our heritage. That's a total disrespect of everything that we stand for, okay? Everything that we stand for.
The fallout was swift and certain. NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell called the president's comments divisive, saying they demonstrated an unfortunate lack of respect for the NFL, our great game, and all of our players, that the president exhibits a failure to understand the overwhelming force for good our clubs and players represent in our communities. Roger, force for good? Are you sure you want to get into this fight? Now, Roger, if my memory serves me correctly, your stance on some of the NFL players and the women they batter is somewhat problematic. Think Ray Rice, Josh Brown, and a neuropathologist examining the brains of 111 NFL players found 110 to have CTE, chronic traumatic encephalopathy, the degenerative disease linked to repeated blows to the head. Instead of mouthing off how you are a force for good, Roger, maybe you ought to get ready to reveal damaging information when the lawsuits start. Think Aaron Hernandez. And according to USA Today, NFL player arrests are not only disproportionate to the general population, but the violence associated with these arrests is shocking. And I'm not even talking about the homicides. And Commissioner, instead of taking sides against the national anthem, maybe you ought to think about your stockholders, your investors. Even though the stock market, thanks to our President Trump, is at an all-time high, there is one area that is suffering greatly. Companies that broadcast, yes, the NFL games, they are all down. Do you think that just maybe there's a correlation between the NFL broadcasting stock slump, the NFL TV ratings fall, as the protests by these bozos rise? Attendance is down at NFL games. Sunday night football viewership is down at least 7%. And I'm sure you know that as ESPN has become more political, it's had to lay off employees because of its low ratings. And NFL Players Assistant Executive Director D. Maurice Smith says no one should have to choose a job that forces them to surrender their rights. He says they have, quote, thoughtful discussions in your locker rooms and boardrooms. Hey, D. Maurice, the only people who choose a job that forces them to surrender their rights are cops, the ones who die protecting people they don't even know. And it's the same liberals who want to protect the constitutional right of people like Colin Kaepernick to symbolically reject America by taking a knee. They're the ones who were quick to criticize Tim Tebow for bending a knee to pray and thank God on the field. And just this evening, the Golden State Warriors are refusing to go to the White House, placing blame on the president, saying he's made it clear we're not invited. That's nonsense. The president disinvited Steph Curry, not the team. My take? People watch sports to get away from day-to-day stress, work, illness, financial worries. We don't need to be reminded of the political divisions. And all of a sudden, football players are lovers of the Constitution and the First Amendment. You're all full of crap. And that includes running back LaShawn McCoy, who called the president a word that I can't even say. You want to kneel, sit, or raise your fist during the national anthem? You ought to go kneel in front of a guy who's lost his limbs fighting for you so that you can call the president names. And don't give me this crap that you guys want to support reform and stand up against social injustice. You tell me the last time you sat on a jury. You tell me the last time you joined a school board or fought for laws that help people you supposedly want to help. When's the last time you voted, wrote a letter to your legislator or congressional representative? You want to convince America that this is about social justice and the Constitution? Then maybe you ought to get off your butts and do something positive for the country that's allowed you to make a fortune. America's been incredibly good to every one of you. From the time you displayed talent in sports as a youth, America's allowed you to shine and become financially prosperous. There are so many of you who make tens of millions of dollars. Why don't you get together and take care of the so-called social injustices instead of disrespecting our country, our nation? The country that has turned you into heroes while you train 8-year-olds who don't know any better to take a knee against America because they're taking their lead from all of you because they don't know any better. Shame on you. Shame on all of you. And shame on you too, Roger Goodell, for not showing that you love this country as much as the president does when you had the chance. And that's my open. Tell me what you think on my Facebook page, Twitter, and Instagram. Hashtag Judge Jeanine, and I'll even read some of your responses in a few minutes. Joining me now with reaction, conservative commentator, radio host, Michelle Malkin, investigations on CRTV.com. How are you, Michelle?
Good. Amen, Judge. Amen.
Michelle, what is going on? Why is it that when the president finally says, you know what, America needs to respect who we are, that the NFL, the commissioner, these guys all come out, and I'm not even convinced they know what they're objecting to?
Yeah, well, you've got left-wing elites across entertainment and now infected in the sports world, Judge, who are allergic to American sovereignty. And they have not gotten over the election results. So what we're seeing are a rash and outbreak of tantrums on every playing field. And if they keep doubling down on stupid in these sports professional boards, what's going to happen is that NFL is going to stand for no longer, fans are leaving, right? No fans left.
Right.
And you've got a playing field now that has become noxious. It's a noxious fan of leftists. And as you point out, the numbers don't lie. I wrote a column about it this week that includes the NFL. Viewership is down since the beginning of the opening season by 13%. We're seeing drops in attendance. We're seeing drops everywhere in advertising as well. And that's because there's no business enterprise that's ever going to survive by insulting and trashing its own customer base.
Well, and what's amazing is that I'm not convinced that these guys all agree or even know what they're protesting. It's like the women's march in Washington right after the inauguration. We're not going to take it. We're not going to take this. Take what? What rights are being taken away from you? I still haven't figured that one out. Have you?
No, and of course the phenomenon is virtue signaling. You have a few militants like Colin Kaepernick who have been very well marinated and steeped in cultural Marxism from the time they were in high school or college, and then you have thoughtless joiners, lemmings, who go along with their black power salutes, not understanding what they're embracing. Colin Kaepernick fully does. This is somebody who put cops depicted as pigs on socks that he wore on the field, who went around sporting Che Guevara T-shirts. He knows what he's doing.
Okay.
But as you say, what we need is an internal revolt among. There are many patriotic members of the NFL, but they unfortunately at this point seem to constitute a silent majority.
You know what I found interesting? There was a group of 8-year-olds, a team, where one of the kids asked about what happened in St. Louis, and long story short, the coach said it was okay for them if they wanted to take a knee during the national anthem. Now, these kids, they just turned at the age of 7 to the age of reason. These kids don't have the slightest idea why they're taking a knee. They don't know the first thing about what happened in St. Louis, the trial, the criminal justice system. I mean, should there be some requirement, at least in grammar school, that we do something about this?
Well, if there were civic education and a solid grounding in the Constitution, we wouldn't see this happening. And instead, of course, we now have elected and former elected officials who are calling for tomorrow there to be some sort of national take a knee day. A lot of these people need to take a knee on a pew and pray and reflect and adopt an attitude of gratitude, as you mentioned in your opening statement, Judge, an attitude of gratitude for the blessings of this country. For people who make an average of $2 million a year, that is the average salary in the NFL, to be carping and moaning and adopting a grievance-mongering stand the way they do without the proper perspective of history and our place in the world, it is an absolute disgrace. Even more so, you have this former Democrat congresswoman from Maryland, Donna Edwards, who is now calling for all of these NFL players to take a knee to, quote, protest the white supremacist President Trump.
All right.
How dare these people? How dare these people
Malkin,
race bait for a living?
Thank you so much. And now to our other major story tonight, North Korea and Iran. North Korea ratcheting up the rhetoric against the president today, while Iran announces a successful missile test. Joining me now with a reaction to all of this, Fox News contributor, former Arkansas Governor Mike Huckabee. All right, good evening, Governor. We're learning that that North Korea, and not just in terms of the language on both sides, but North Korea is talking about a hydrogen bomb, and, you know, raining nuclear material over the Pacific. And, you know, it is frightening now. We just heard that there was a 3.4, some kind of earthquake or some kind of tremor, I should say, that some are actually attributing to the nuclear test that North Korea itself did. A lot of tremors, a lot of problems in North Korea. I mean, how does this all end?
Well, Judge, I'm sitting here listening, and by the way, I think a lot of Americans ought to be taking a knee to thank God Donald Trump is president with North Korea and Iran making the threats they're making, because what we've been doing, and let's be honest, both Democrat and Republican presidents for the last 25, 30 years, believing in somehow this magic diplomacy is going to make these animals calm down. It hasn't worked. It isn't working. And the fact is, Donald Trump is the first president who looked them in the eye, went right to the United Nations and said to the whole world that this guy's crazy. And if he continues to do this, we're going to destroy him. Now, I know that scared the daylights out of some people. What I don't understand, why are they not frightened of seeing San Francisco vaporized by a guy who's just dying for the opportunity to do something that crazy? We have a president who takes that seriously when a person continues to say, we're going to blow you up, we're going to kill you. You know, it would have been helpful back during World War II if some people would have taken seriously the threats that Hitler was making when he said he was going to murder all the Jews. And people said, well, that'll never happen. Well, it almost did happen. So now we ought to take seriously when someone says, we're going to kill you. First thing, believe them.
Yeah, people should believe that. But, you know, to me, if there's a chance for peace, I think that the other side has to believe or be convinced that we have not only the capability but the intention to use force, as opposed to this namby-pamby tiptoeing around. I mean, the other side has to know, hey, there's a guy over there who's really going to deliver the punch. And everyone for the last, I mean, from Bill Clinton paying him off on down, the tiptoeing is not doing us any good. And all it's allowed is for Kim Jong-un to get what he wants. And I am incredibly worried about our electric grid with an electromagnetic pulse, something that is in real jeopardy and could send us back to the dark ages.
And that alone, the EMP threat, frankly, could be more devastating to the entire country than an isolated bomb attack. That would be disastrous. But let's keep in mind, what Donald Trump said at the UN finally got China off high center and caused them to intervene at a level that we've been wanting them to do for a long time. So instead of condemning what the president has done, they ought to be grateful that he's actually pushed the diplomacy route at a level it hasn't been before. Maybe we will avoid any type of military conflict because the Chinese and the rest of the world are convinced that President Trump is willing, if necessary, to engage militarily.
And, you know, Governor, what's interesting is the success that the president had at the UN with China coming on board, and you juxtapose that to the president returning to domestic issues and, you know, Obamacare, tax reform, which we're going to talk about, and it's got to be very frustrating. But, Governor Huckabee, thanks so much for being with us this evening.
Thank you, Judge.
All right. And I want to take a moment to read your social media feedback on my opening statement tonight. Linda says, Roger Goodell should be fired. The NFL's priorities are greedy. We canceled our NFL package and are not happy with these punks. Marianne says, I'm so tired of our PC culture. Thank you for standing fast for the truth. So hard to watch the constant assault. And coming up, my all-star panel is ready for battle. They react to my opening statement next. And later, Newt Gingrich speaks out on the Obamacare repeal, hopes for the GOP. Plus, a can't-miss street justice. I head out to hear what you think of North Korea's Rocket Man. What should we do to Kim Jong-un from North Korea? What should we do to him?
Strap him to the rocket.
President Trump fighting back against critics over both his America First policy and now defending the flag here at home. Joining me now, Lawrence Jones, Blaze TV host, and Neil Soroka from Democracy for America. Gentlemen, thanks for joining us tonight. All right, I want to stay on this take a knee issue. There is a former retired congresswoman by the name of Donna Edwards from Maryland who, since tomorrow's Football Sunday, is suggesting that all NFL players take a knee. So, Lawrence, what's your take on this former congresswoman's suggestion?
Well, obviously, I'm a man that believes in standing for the national anthem. But, Judge, I got to be honest with you. I just simply don't care what these athletes are doing politically. I come to watch the game, and that's it. And half of the time when they're doing these political stunts, I'm going to go get food and get my food tray ready to watch the game. So, honestly, I don't think it's going to be really effective. I'm not trying to watch that when I'm watching the game. I think people are getting way too caught up in this pissing match between the president and athletes, and we just need to watch sports, and people that want to do politics be political commentators like me.
Okay, but quickly, I mean, is this... That's not going to prevent you from going to a game.
No, it's not. I mean, people are talking about boycotts. At the end of the day, I want as many people, especially from my community, getting jobs, and those people of color investing that money back into our community. It's not enough for me to boycott. I would be boycotting everything, Judge, from the actors and actresses. I wouldn't be able to see anything. It would be a boring life.
All right, Neil, what's your take on this bend the knee?
These are folks exercising their constitutional rights, and yet you had the president standing up on the stage yesterday calling them son of a bitches that deserve to be fired. That's pretty disgraceful talk coming out of the president, and frankly a disgusting understanding of what our Constitution is all about, protecting people's rights to free speech. He had no problem calling people who were bigotedly, doing a white supremacist rally in Charlottesville, very good people. But all of a sudden, some black...
He didn't call them very good people. Come on,
Oh, yeah, that's what he did call it. He called some very nice people.
Oh, I'm sorry.
He called the white supremacists people. Yes, he did. Judge, he said they were some of them were very nice people at that white supremacist rally. And yet he has a problem with black men standing up to systemic injustice on the sidelines of a football game silently.
Go ahead, Lawrence, go ahead.
Judge, here's the problem. You got people upset about people taking the knee, and then you have people on the left upset when coaches decide or players decide to pray at games. And so if you really value the Constitution and rights of American citizens, then you should respect it across the aisle. It shouldn't matter if you agree with the speech or disagree with the speech. Yes, you got to accept that some Americans aren't going to like people kneeling for the flag, and they'll tune out. So there's going to be some type of consequence. But to say people need to be fired on both sides is wrong.
Okay.
So Lawrence, you agree that we shouldn't be doing what Donald Trump is calling for, which is firing people for their free speech?
Well,
if the coaches decide that they want to fire him, then that's their prerogative.
So the white ultra-rich owner should fire the black men for standing up and speaking out against systemic injustice.
No, that's not what I'm saying.
That's what it is.
This is about the American flag and so-called social injustice.
This is about systemic injustice.
Give me an idea. You know what? What did you just say?
It's about systemic injustice. That's what this is about.
Okay.
It's about the fact that black folks represent 14% of this country, but 25% of the people killed by police.
Well,
and
let me ask you a
34% of the people who are unarmed.
Let me ask you a question. Why is it that black lives only matter when it's a white person who's involved, but when black on black crime in the inner city is the issue?
Here we go again.
Black lives matter. You know why?
Because
I can speak to this. This is what I did for 30 years.
Judge, what we're talking about is who has power. And white folks and police have power in our society. And these folks are standing up to systemic injustice.
Well, what about the fact that these players have tens of millions of dollars
and were
given a chance?
They still have rights, and many of those people...
Nobody's saying they don't have rights.
And many of those people, because of the color of their skin, may be judged by a police officer differently than someone like myself. That's a problem.
Let me tell you something. There are many African Americans who are racist as well towards white people. But that's not the issue here. The issue here is whether or not you're going to disrespect the country that is giving you so much and giving you an opportunity.
That's maybe what you want to have this discussion about. I think we should be talking about systemic injustice.
Here, I'll keep repeating this. Private businesses have the right to do whatever they want to do, such as fire who they want to. Thankfully, some of these people, such as the owners as well as the commissioners, have said their players can kneel. That's up to those owners if they want to suffer the consequences. I'm a Dallas Cowboy fan. We don't kneel on the Dallas Cowboys. And there's a reason why we're the #1 franchise as well as America's team. So there's consequences both ways. If people want to kneel, then there's their constitutional right if the owners want to allow them to kneel. But if the owner decides, hey, this is my stand. Hold on.
Thanks so much to be continued. And up next, the one and only Newt Gingrich on the latest Obamacare repeal saga, Jeff Sessions, and all the congressional scandals. Back in a moment.
Live from America's News headquarters, I'm Lauren Green. Federal agencies are grappling with the huge disaster in Puerto Rico caused by Hurricane Maria. Many towns are still without fresh water and food 3 days after the storm. FEMA says supplies are getting in, but there are problems getting the supplies from the airports to the people who need them. Meanwhile, tens of thousands of people living downstream from a failing dam are now under evacuation orders. Officials say the dam is on the verge of collapse, unable to handle the weight of heavy floodwaters. And in Mexico, rescue workers are racing against the clock, trying to find survivors from Tuesday's massive earthquake. The official death toll from the magnitude 7.1 quake rising to 305 today. Saturday morning's magnitude 6.1 quake is believed to be an aftershock from a more powerful earthquake a little more than 2 weeks ago. I'm Lauren Green. Now back to Justice with Judge Jeanine.
President Trump slamming Senator John McCain for opposing efforts to repeal Obamacare. Earlier, I spoke with the author of Understanding Trump, former Speaker of the House, Fox News contributor Newt Gingrich. He also has a new online course called Defending America. I asked the speaker about the repeal and if Jeff Sessions will ever indict anyone from the Obama administration. Take a look. Mr. Speaker, thanks so much for being with us tonight.
It's always great to be with you.
Thank you. All right. Now, the president had an almost what seems to me to be a perfect week. On the one hand, it seemed that the world is coming together against Kim Jong-un. And now, domestically, though, we've got health care, we've got tax reform, and we can't even get the Republican Party to support this president. We find out yesterday that John McCain is not going to support it. Does Mitch McConnell still put the bill on the floor? What happens now? You've been there. What do you need to do to get those votes?
Well, I think he's got a real challenge because Rand Paul has said he would be against it.
Right.
I suspect, although I don't know, that Susan Collins may be against it because she's pretty consistently voted that way.
Right.
I think they had a fair chance of getting Senator Mikulski to vote yes. And frankly, if Rand Paul then switched, they'd be okay. But they can't afford to lose all four of them. And it's a huge problem. And Senator McCain, I think there was some hope because he's so close to Lindsey Graham that he might vote for it as a personal favor to Lindsey. Obviously, that's not true. And I think, if you're McConnell, you probably don't bring it up, but you might bring it up just to put everybody on the line and to say, look, you have to live with this. We're going to make one last rush at it. And I do think as you watch Obamacare collapsing, the rising premiums, the number of counties that have no insurance agent company or only one, it's harder and harder to make a case for keeping Obamacare.
Well, yeah, as the markets continue to skyrocket, it's going to be a problem. And one last question. We find out this past week Samantha Powers, she's unmasking one a day, a working day, unheard of in someone who's a UN ambassador. What we have in the Obama administration, you've got an FBI director exonerating Hillary Clinton. You've got the Attorney General, violating all ethics rules. You've got Lois Lerner going after Republicans. What do we have to do to get not the House and the Senate to start investigations, but Jeff Sessions, the Attorney General, to start impaneling grand juries to go after real crime in the Obama administration?
Well, I think, he did not recuse himself on anything except the Russian investigation. So I think on all of these things, for example, on Ambassador Powers, which is just absolutely extraordinary. I mean, why does the UN ambassador have the right? You know, what was her reasoning? What was she trying to get at? I think those are places where there's nothing to stop Attorney General Sessions from impaneling both prosecutors and the FBI and going after these people. And clearly, there should be a fairly large amount of house cleaning at the Justice Department. I hope that Sessions will decide to tackle it. I know he got a little bit burned early on in his relationship with Trump, but this is now so clearly wrong. And I'm not a lawyer. You are, but I'm not a lawyer. But as a historian, I can't imagine that you would need any more evidence of how sick the system had become. And I do think the Justice Department should investigate it.
Well, you know, being a lawyer, a judge, a prosecutor, you know, whatever I am, the facts are eminently clear. You've got the Clinton Foundation, you've got the email scandal, you've got Jim Comey. I think obstruction of justice on his own, perjury, conspiracy, a violation of the Hatch Act. You know, I could go on and on. It's time for the Republicans to start doing their job. I'm not asking you to go against Democrats because they're Democrats, but to go against real crime. Debbie Wasserman Schultz, why is she protecting that Imran Awan? What was that about? Let's get to the bottom of this.
Oh, you're exactly right. And frankly, that scandal in the House, which had a very large number of Democrats paying these Pakistani information technology guys, that whole thing is so weird. You know, now it looks like he actually left a computer for the FBI to find. Now, I don't know if that was revenge against Debbie Wasserman Schultz or what, but the more you learn about these guys, the weirder that one story would normally be a scandal, but it's existing in the middle of so many scandals, it's hard to focus on it.
Well, you know what? He's got a big enough Justice Department to focus. Anyway, Speaker Newt Gingrich, thanks so much for being with us. Take care.
Good to be with you.
Thank you. Coming up, Harlan Hill and Michael Starr Hopkins are here to battle it out over the chances of an Obamacare repeal. Justice will be right back. Welcome back to Justice. What a week for the president on the world stage, but next week is all about his agenda here at home. So let's get right to it with my panel, advisory board member for the President Trump's 2020 reelection campaign, Harlan Hill, and Democratic strategist Michael Starr Hopkins. Okay, guys, you know, the president's approval numbers are going up. He had a great week, America First, all that stuff, and he comes back to the domestic agenda. And John McCain does, you know, a thumbs down and says, I cannot in good conscience vote for the Graham Cassidy bill. And, you know, he couldn't, you know, the skinny repeal in July. And yet he campaigned on a repeal and replace. Why do you think he's doing that?
Well, on the Cassidy bill, he said he didn't support the process that they were using, and not having open negotiations and bringing it to the floor for discussion.
Extensive hearings and debate.
Yeah.
Well, 7 years we need to discuss
well,
this?
I agree with you. Republicans have had 7 years to come up with a plan. They voted 50 times on a bill, and now that they have got
Go ahead, Harlan. What's with McCain?
I'm tired of the excuses from Washington. Republicans asked for the House, they got it. They asked for the Senate, they got it. They asked for the White House, they got it. Now they have all the tools that they need to pass comprehensive health care reform, to save American people, to give them relief from the horrible oppression of Obamacare. And they're not doing it. They're not delivering.
Okay.
But the Cassidy bill's not going to fix health care.
Well, in a lot of ways, it stops the individual mandate, the employer mandate. You know, it gives block grants to the states. Look, we all know that the people who are in the best position to solve a problem are the people closest to it. Stop with the federal government. New York State. You have so much Medicaid fraud, it's not funny. I prosecuted it as a DA. It was a joke. I did millions of dollars in a minute. Okay? This maybe would be an incentive. So you know what? You want the money, you deal with it.
But if you want to make something really political, take block grants and give every governor the choice of how they want to allocate health care funds. You want to talk about something that's going to be political and it's going to affect communities disproportionately? That's absolutely going to do it. You know, there's absolutely a hybrid system. Lamar Alexander suggested a plan that would change Obamacare or make fixes to it, and that's something that's bipartisan that I think can move forward.
McCain voted for repeals in the past. He campaigned on this as a signature issue in 2016.
That's right.
And where is he? If he's unhappy with this solution from his good friend Lindsey Graham, then why doesn't he go and author an alternative? And he's not doing it.
Because he doesn't like Donald Trump.
That's it. Absolutely, that's it.
This is called payback.
Payback.
And you know what?
Yes.
The shame of this is at the end of the month, it's over for the Republicans. We go from 50 to 60 to get something passed. Is this the end of the Republican Party?
I hope not. You know, listen, I don't agree with Republicans on a lot.
Because you think you're going to win in the midterms.
No, because we need two strong.
That's not going to happen.
We need two strong parties. We absolutely need two strong parties. And so what I think is going to happen now is we're going to have that Lamar Alexander bill will be put on the floor. Republicans and Democrats will debate it, come up with ways to stabilize the marketplace, and we'll have a temporary fix, a Band-Aid fix. But Republican voters are the ones that are going to be really upset about this. Republican voters are going to punish Republicans in 2018.
Without a doubt. Okay, you agree?
Well, what's going to happen is we're going to start primarying some of these rhinos. We're going to start firing Republicans that campaign on one thing and do not deliver. Because you know what? The Republican Party has been afforded, as I opened up with, has been afforded every opportunity. 34 Republican governors in this country, 2/3 of the state legislatures are controlled by Republicans. You have the House, the Senate, the White House. The time for excuses are over. And that doesn't mean that we're going to go and vote for Democrats. That means that we're going to start firing the Republicans that we have and putting MAGA candidates in their place.
Okay, the Make America Great,
yes.
Of course. All right, let's talk about Alabama. On Tuesday, there's a Senate race, primary race between Judge Roy Moore and the now Senator Luther Strange. President goes to Alabama last night supporting Luther Strange. Why would he do that, seeing as either way the Republican's going to win?
You know, for the life of me, I can't understand why Donald Trump is getting involved in the primary aspect of this. It seems like no matter what, he's going to end up losing. If Strange, well, let me rephrase.
Yeah, what are the implications?
If Strange wins, then that will be a huge boost to him, but that's not likely to happen. If Strange wins, then that shows that Trump managed to erase something like a 25-point deficit. If Roy Moore wins, though, then Trump didn't back Roy Moore, and that creates a whole nother issue.
What do you think, Carlin?
President Donald Trump is big on loyalty. He's proven that time and time again. And Senator Luther Strange has shown tremendous loyalty to the president, as the president articulated last night in Alabama. And he is willing to go to the mat for Senator Strange to demonstrate that if you show me loyalty, I'll be there. I'll have your back when you need me.
But it's been a one-way street.
What do you mean?
What does that mean? When it's a one-way street, he went after Jeff Sessions numerous times. He's gone after members of his cabinet.
Well, this is proof that that's not the case, because he's actually standing up for Luther Strange against all odds. I mean, it would be so easy for him to just take a step back.
I will agree with you that this is a very isolated incident, but it doesn't make sense. He had the win with Pelosi and Schumer. His numbers are going up. Why risk taking a loss now?
It makes sense because the president shows loyalty to those that show him loyalty.
We'll see.
I like nice discussion. Harlan Hill, Michael Starr Hopkins, thanks so much for being with us. And when we come back, I head out onto the street to hear what you think of Rocket Man. Rocket Man is Kim Jong-un. Should we go after him?